We are almost back. We're so close. We're so close. Spring training rosters have been announced. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. We're almost back. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We have not had a Tuesday episode in probably 2.5 months. We are so back to 5 episodes a week in your ears and eyes, or on your eyes, however that saying goes. We got a lot to discuss today. Spring training rosters were announced for your Detroit Tigers. We'll talk about the notable names that made the spring training roster, the notable names that didn't make the spring training roster. It's obviously everybody on the 40-man, so there's not too much to discuss there. Then I believe the Tigers had a total of 18 non-40-man roster invitees with, again, some notable names and some notable omissions. We're also going to talk a little bit about, this is going to shock you, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about Alex Bregman and the latest round of updates before I absolutely just scream. There are still updates, though, so we have to discuss them. We are going to take a little bit of time, too, now that the spring training roster is here, and talk about remaining free agents outside of Bregman. Just one last look. The final, we're going to close the door on spring training, sans Bregman talk, and just say, you know what, is there anyone else out there that the Tigers may consider bringing in during spring training? And then we'll end by just kind of getting hype for, spring and for baseball almost being back and whatnot, and just kind of riff a little bit about some news and notes in that regard. Let's start off with the spring training roster for your Detroit Tigers. Like I said, everybody on the 40-man roster makes, obviously, the Major League spring training camp, makes Major League camp. Now, there's also non-roster invitees. The Tigers have, like I said, just under 20 of those this year. And there were some. Let's start with who did make it. Who are the non-roster invitees? For pitchers, we have Jordan Balazovic, Dietrich Enns, Wilmer Flores, Matt Gage, Wilkel Hernandez, Ryan Miller, Ricky Vanasco, Brendan White. Okay, so those are the pitchers that are not on the 40-man roster that will be in spring camp, Major League camp, I should say, for the Tigers. Catchers, we have Elizer Alfonso, Theron Lorenzo, Tomas Nido, and Brian Servin. For infield, we have Jahmai Jones, Hao-Yu Lee, Eddys Leonard, Andrew Navigato. And for outfield, we have Akil Baddoo and Bly Madris. So I want to just talk about the notable names from that list and kind of who I am specifically going to keep my eye on, maybe a little bit more than usual this spring training. I think Hao-Yu Lee, it's awesome that he is here. I am genuinely really excited about Hao-Yu Lee. He's somebody that the Tigers acquired him for Michael Lorenzen back 2 trade deadlines ago now, and he has done nothing but rake. That continues to be a phenomenal trade. It was believed to be a solid, fine trade at the time. It wasn't a fleece really either direction, and it is very quickly turning into a trade that could really be pretty heavily in the Tigers' favor. He's done nothing but rake. And are there some questions about his defense still? For sure. Getting a lot of looks at second base, but he has really, because when they acquired him, it was okay. can he have a little bit more pop in the bat? He's got great OBP numbers. Clearly, his decision making on what pitches to swing at and what pitches to not swing at are really good. It's just a matter of whether he can drive the ball more effectively, and he has done that and more. I love the player. Like I am super, super optimistic about what he can be going forward. And he's a guy that has just absolutely climbed and kind of flown up prospect rankings and organizational prospect rankings for the Detroit Tigers ever since they acquired him. It's really just kind of been a linear, like a steady ascent in that regard. They also are bringing in Thayron Lorenzo, which obviously, I mean, unless I'm assuming if you are listening to this show that you are familiar and aware of Lorenzo. Like that is how big of a name he has seemingly become within the Tigers organization. Obviously was a part of the Jack Flaherty return, Trey Sweeney and Lorenzo being that full return from the Dodgers. And he has also done nothing but absolutely rake. And he's an exit velocity darling, right? Him and Briseño both have become, who we'll talk about a little bit later, have really become like the prototypes for just like big body hitters that drive the ball and hit the ball really, really, really hard. So him in camp is going to be really interesting because he is listed as a catcher, which makes me really excited. There's been some question marks about whether or not he will stick behind the plate. He's a switch hitter, which is awesome. But switch hitting catchers, I think, are pretty few and far between. Not that there's none, obviously. I'm I'm aware, but those are a pretty rare breed. And it just looked like when he first came over in the minor leagues that his footwork was a little bit slow and he just maybe didn't have the athleticism to be back there. And he has also done nothing but improve in that regard. Now, I'm not here claiming that he's gonna he still has a lot more to prove before I am like, yeah, he's gonna be a major league catcher for 10, 15 years. I think there's still a long road and kind of way to go before we're fully on board in that regard. But just in general, the fact that he is listed as a catcher, there was a video going around last week of him working with Jake Rogers. That's awesome, right? Defensively working with Jake Rogers. And I think if you can even get him to be an average catcher behind the plate, because he's got a pretty decent arm, if you can even get him to be a mediocre defensive catcher, you're talking about a guy that could be unbelievably valuable for this team with how he's been swinging the stick since becoming a part of this organization. Wilmer Flores, really interesting. Really, really interesting. And I unfortunately am not sure whether that is super positive or negative, but I am, regardless, glad and happy that he has found himself in big league camp. I'm glad that he's back. He didn't get picked up by another organization when he got removed from the 40-man roster, right? Like he is staying in the organization and will continue to pitch in big league camp like he did last year. Last year, I was super optimistic on Flores. He's just had a roller coaster of a professional career, I'd say. He was a domestic undrafted, which are very rare, but it was the 2020 year, so there were only 5 rounds in the draft. So obviously there's going to be a lot more that year, but he wasn't an international free agent. My point. Like he was draft eligible and wasn't drafted, which you don't see too terribly often in baseball. And well, just because there's so many rounds. But he really splashed onto the scene was that 2022? He was phenomenal. Flew through the minor league system, dominated high single A, went to double A, did really well there. And then by 2023 was in triple A, dealt with some injury stuff. There were some questions about whether he was even going to be a starting pitcher long term or whether they were going to have to kind of move him to the bullpen. They kind of played like hacky sack with that and went back and forth. And then last year, you saw him again have more kind of injury problems, but in spring training, he was pumping 100. I remember coming on this show and being like, oh my goodness, Wilmer Flores is here. Like he's fine. He's thrown 100. He's going to be a pure reliever. There's no issue with that. He's going to be really good. And then was either hurt or struggled a lot. The velocity was all over the place. It was a weird year for him. So I'm glad that he's back in big league camp, but I mean, there's so many question marks surrounding him. I would love for him to work his way back onto the 40-man roster, but that's a lot easier said than done. He's going to have to prove it to the organization for sure. Got a few more names that I want to kind of highlight of the non-roster invitees. Then we'll talk about the notable omissions and more right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on all of the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback specifically, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your bets for a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never felt like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new customers on FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shots to every dayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow as we are back to 5 episodes a week. Came straight on air from the office today, so you got buttoned up, looking a little, top button undone now, tie off, whatever. But we're little spiffy today. Talking about the names of importance on, and maybe importance isn't the right word. Everybody that makes the team and is a part of the organization is important in their own right. But the notable kind of names that I'm keeping a close eye on from this list of players that are non-roster invitees for spring training, left off after Wilmer Flores, Brendan White. Brendan White was on this show probably about a year and a half ago now. And I was just blown away with his insight and his knowledge of the game of baseball and his opinions on the sport and pitching and sequencing and what data he uses and all of that. It was such a fascinating conversation, even off air. Like him and I, we stayed off, on camera, off air, just talking about pitching for a while after we were done recording. And so I have become a fan of his, and that slider he has just moves so much that I find it really hard to believe, with the velocity he has and with the movement he has on his breaking stuff, that there isn't, at a minimum, like a solid, maybe low leverage major league reliever. Like I just have a really hard time believing, with the stuff he possesses, that there isn't a major leaguer in there. And so last year he barely pitched at all, pretty much all sidelined due to injury. Hopefully he's back ready to go this year. Isn't going to have that issue, and obviously was removed from the 40-man, but wasn't at risk of leaving because of the injury. We'll see what happens, but I'm like cautiously optimistic. I'm pretty excited about what he could offer in spring training this year. Akil Baddoo, always going to be notable, not on the 40-man roster anymore, obviously, but just somebody that I think, if there's 2 injuries in the outfield, you're talking about Baddoo being back not only on the 40-man roster, but potentially, depending on who those outfielders are, back in the major leagues. Like he's still not that far removed, even though he's not on the 40-man, from being back in the majors. And honestly, if I had to bet on it, I would say he probably does take at least one at bat at the major league level at some point this season. So we'll see what happens with him, but still a lot of swing adjustments that he needs to make, and a lot of, honestly, for lack of a better term, issues with his swing from last year that he needs to get on top of. But he's still such an electric player, and we'll always root for him. Eddie's Leonard, the darling of spring training last year, is back, but not on the 40-man roster. So we'll see what happens with him. A guy that a lot of questions about his defense, also dealt with some injury stuff last year, but when he does hit the ball, he hits it really hard. So a lot of people were really, there was a point in time when there was a portion of the fan base last year during spring training that wanted Eddie's Leonard to make the major league roster out of camp over Javi Baez. Well, really over Javi Baez because Leonard was listed as a shortstop, but just wanted him to make the roster, period. It wasn't really a Javi thing. It was he's doing really well thing. So that'll be another player to keep an eye on. And then Andrew Navigado, I just love and had a great year in AAA last year. So always going to keep an eye on what he's doing. Glad that he did not depart and leave the organization despite not being on the 40-man roster, not being protected in the Rule 5. Notable omissions, players that did not make the big league camp. Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal, Jose Briseño, Jaden Ham. The two big ones are going to be Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal. The reason why is because you're seeing Lorenzo and Hao-Yu Lee in Major League camp and not those guys. I do think that maybe there was a little bit of an overreaction from parts of the fan base, not seeing Clark and McGonigal there and seeing Lee and Lorenzo. Hao-Yu Lee is going to be, assuming he doesn't make the team out of camp, which I don't think he will, is going to be in AAA, right? He's going to be in AAA. He is on the verge of being added to the 40-man roster. And Kevin McGonigal is, I guess the hope is Clark and McGonigal get a lot of playing time in AA this year, but they spent a majority of last season at one of the two single A levels. Both of them, Clark and McGonigal, got called up together actually from single A to high single A. Ham still in the lower levels last year, right? Briseño, a lot of injury stuff as well last year. I think when you look at the development path, it's not that ridiculous to me. The only thing that makes it weird to me is the fact that at the end of last season, AJ Hinch in the closing press conference literally said, we'll see you in spring training, Kevin McGonigal. Now, he also said Lorenzo by name, and he is there. But that's the only part that's kind of weird about it is clearly they were at least somewhat planning on him being in big league camp, but they're still going to be in minor league camp, which is right there. It's in the same spot. It's just a different locker room or clubhouse or whatever. Obviously, they play completely different schedule and whatnot, but it's not it's. I guess my point is they will probably still play in spring training games. You know what I mean? That's you can bring as many people as you want to spring training games. You can play 50 different people if you want to. So it's really not that big of a deal to me. They were never going to make the major league team out of camp. I guess it's kind of noteworthy because there were other players that are also prospects that did make it, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal that those two guys didn't make the big league camp at least. And I would imagine Jackson Jobe last year made big league camp and then was told on day one he wasn't going to make the team. I would imagine that probably happens with Lorenzo and potentially Lee as well. So we'll see what happens, but really fun that those guys do get the honor and the privilege of practicing and being with the major league team for at least the first week or two. And I'm sure Clark, McGonigal, and Briseño and Ham, assuming health, will all be, at some point will participate in a spring training game. Let's talk Bregman, and then let's just get hyped. Okay, tomorrow is when pitchers and catchers report. We're almost here. We're going to talk Bregman. I'm going to get really annoyed, and then we're going to turn the page to positivity. Okay? We'll do that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always. So the Bregman update of the day is that, there's two kind of similar updates. One is that Bob Nightingale of USA Today reported that the Tigers offered at least 4 years to Alex Bregman. What does that mean? Uh, I guess we assume that that's true. That could be 4. That could be 8. I don't know. The thing that makes me think it's probably just 4, maybe 5. And this is like context clues. This is not anything I know for certain. For all I know, they could have a 12-year deal out there for him. Early in the offseason, the report was that Bregman was looking for 6 to 7 years. And I have a hard time believing that if he truly had a deal on the table with the price within even remote price range that he's asking for that had 6 or 7 years attached to it, that he wouldn't be signing with them already this close to spring training and team reporting and whatever. The follow-up to Nightingale's same report was that, quote, no one is willing to meet his asking price. So that also leads me to believe that is probably the case. We'll see what happens. There was a rumor going around out there that the Tigers offered 6 years. Who knows, man? Like I'm so tired of trying to keep track of every single report, and all of them contradict each other, but they all kind of just say the same thing every day. Like one of the other ones from Monday, reports from Monday, was from a Red Sox writer, and he said, Buster Olney reports that the Tigers, Red Sox, and whoever the third team was, the Blue Jays or the Cubs, it definitely was the Cubs, are expected to sign Bregman soon. And I quote tweeted it and said, this literally could have been from before Thanksgiving, and you wouldn't even know the difference between it being reported on February 10th versus, November 15th. That like we've just been getting fed the same information every day and nothing's changed. It's very annoying. I'm kind of over it. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm really done reading too much into these reports until he puts pen to paper, as I've said a million times. I want to put a bow on free agency, sans Bregman, which I will continue to annoy myself and bring up. But what other free agents that are still available could the Tigers be interested in? I actually don't think it's very many. And I don't know why I said I actually do, as if that's like a surprise. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. Most teams' off seasons are close to done or done. But like catcher, the Tigers aren't going to add a major league catcher at this point. If we just go position by position, first base, unless you're bringing in like Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo, Ty France, like you're talking about guys that didn't have very good years last year and are in their either early or mid 30s. I saw one rumor about like the Tigers potentially being interested in Justin Turner. Look, I've been wrong plenty. I'm sure I'll be wrong again about plenty more. I would be stunned if the Tigers had any interest in Justin Turner. He is pretty much listed as strictly a first baseman at this point. He hasn't played third base consistently in years. He's 40. And the numbers offensively are slowly trending down, becoming more of a like platoon type of guy. I don't see that. Unless the Tigers are confident he can play third base every day again at 40, which again, he hasn't done in a long time at this point. I have no clue how they would fit that into their lineup. So I don't think anybody on the first base list is really of interest. Second base, certainly not. You got Glaber. He's one of the best second basemen on the market this winter. And even if he doesn't work out, Colt Keith can move off at first and go back to second. You're relatively deep there. Shortstop, I guess in a perfect world, maybe, but like the best shortstops available are Paul DeJong and Jose Iglesias at 35. Like, I don't really think there's a market for that. I think they're going to run with the Javi Trey Sweeney show. Third base, we all know Bregman, and after that, that's like kind of it. Like you're talking about Brian Anderson, Jace Peterson, like guys that were around 0 WAR last year. There's not too much depth there after Bregman at third base, so we all hold our breath there. Outfield, we don't even need to go left, center, right. I don't think there's any market, any Tigers interest in outfielders at this point. They're deep there. They really like the talent they have there, and they're pretty darn good if everyone reaches their ceiling. You have an outfield of rotating door in right field, but it's Parker, Green, Carpenter, Vierling. Like those are three of those four guys have like legitimate all-star caliber ceilings. And Matt Vierling put up, dang near a 3-win season last year. So like you have options. I don't think they're in the market for any of those. They're not going to bring in a DH like JD Martinez. That's only going to be DH. We talked about that yesterday. They're good on starting pitchers at this point. So then it's just relievers. That is the one position I could see them add more of. Outside of, obviously, again, Bregman. And that's not even because like their bullpen is bad or they need more help there. They had a good bullpen last year and added Tommy Kahnle. Like the only reason why is just because like everybody could kind of always use more relievers. And there's always reliever free agents available. David Robertson, you signed him to a 1-year deal at 40, could always do something for you. Kenley Jansen, one of the best closers of this generation, took a step back last year, walked a lot of guys, but for a solid couple of months there, was really good still for the Red Sox. 37 years old. You know what I mean? Like you go down the list, like Jacob Junis, Dylan Floro, Craig Kimbrell at 37. If you want to get a couple of months before he inevitably probably gets hurt again, of see what he still has left in the tank. Buck Farmer, you can reunite with him. Like my point is just that there is always going to be someone out there in the reliever market you can convince yourself, oh, like that wouldn't be a bad addition. Do I think they're going to add any more relievers? No, I think they're probably set. I mean, Andrew Chafin, reunite with him. He didn't have a very good year last year, though. I think it's probably Bregman or this is the team. And I really don't have an issue with that. I think they added enough and have enough internally where they can, like this spring training roster is probably the best spring training roster they've had in quite some time, to be honest, which is probably more of a testament to, the quite some time part of it and those teams than it is necessarily this being a world beater. But I'm fine with, again, Bregman or just what we have. And we'll see obviously what happens with that saga. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow, baby. Wednesday is the day. We're already seeing some players show up. Tarek Skubel's already down there posting some pictures of his spring training jersey and getting, ready for it. Another thing I really liked was Buster Only tweeted out an article of kind of like teams we're most excited to watch, or things I should say that we're most excited to see in spring training. And the Tigers were, one of those teams he kind of called out and said that they were, I think he called them a breakout candidate. So that would be pretty cool, obviously, if that came true. But either way, just the fact that there is, legitimate hype around a young Tigers team going into a season for the first time in a while is just really, really cool. And we'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the biggest stories to watch in spring training. That's always the episode we drop when pitchers and catchers report. So expect that in your eyes and ears tomorrow. Said that saying again. Still don't know if I got it right. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. We are almost back. Go Tigers, baby.